Welcome to the Daily Injection Program. This is show number 4, and I want to talk today about the conception as to when the coronavirus epidemic, the outbreak, will start to unwind, how much the markets have discounted so far. Has it been justified? And part of the new world that we live in other words, many companies will rebound right back, and other companies are in industries that will be permanently shaken out and might get just weakened overall. For example, the introduction of the internet, it's made newspapers a very tough business to run. And that is what's called an obsolete business or a permanently impaired business, and an industry in decline. Some industries will bounce right back. They were sold off, or they were being judged along with all other companies in the same basket because fund managers had to liquidate entire portfolios. But some companies have been able to not only survive the coronavirus but become even stronger. And on the flip side, you will have industries that will be permanently suffering from a pandemic like this. It's just, don't look for justice or fairness or for everyone to be bailed out in the same way, or for every unemployed person to have the same solution as other unemployed persons. This is a tough situation with more people and industries and companies falling between the cracks than than what we're hoping for. For, hey, a perfect reset, boom, everything's going to go back to normal, because that's not going to happen. Now, I do want to talk about vaccines versus drugs and the younger generation. Before I do, when we talk about the coronavirus crisis that it did, the economic crisis, that is our doing. We as societies collectively decided the damages from not doing it could be bigger than the damages of doing it. So we are taking that challenge on ourselves, or I should say authorities are taking that challenge on themselves, and there's not enough public outcry. In other words, we're not saying, hey, stop that. That's suicide. That's not something we should do. And so they're proceeding. So this balancing act in a democracy between what the public wants and what the government feels is the either the right choice, the tough choice. That's what we're seeing. That's the drama that we're seeing right now playing out. And many things are assumed to be impossible or assumed to be never to happen. But we've seen many things that we thought would never happen. As I'm doing this blog, I'm spinning, or the Earth is spinning around its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. If you would have felt that, no life on this planet would not be achievable for us as a species. So there are many mind-boggling things. We are, as a planet, are circling around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, and you think about that, two rocks, and they're circling in space without anything holding them up or down besides gravity. There are mind-boggling things about the universe and mind-boggling things regarding human ingenuity. From 1886 until 1954, so almost for 80 years, it was considered impossible for a human being to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Literally, a generation, two generations, nobody thought this would be impossible. This would be possible and doable. In 1954, a British person named Roger Bannister did it in 3 minutes, 59 seconds, and 0.4, and opened the minds of other people to the notion that that's possible. And 1,400 people since then have done it. In fact, in the first year after he did it, many other people did it because it opened their barriers inside of their minds. I want you to open your mind to the idea that we don't have to wait for a vaccine. Many analysts are saying, okay, this is a 12 to 18 month process until their vaccine's introduced, and therefore, we're going to go through hell for the next 12 to 18 months. What's being done right now by the Trump administration, by the FDA, and I'm sure by other countries as well, is they're looking at other drugs that are currently approved and whether or not they're effective on COVID-19, because COVID-19 is a coronavirus. There are many other coronaviruses that are currently being treated for animals, and there are some that are applicable in this case. Secondly, there are people that have already gotten better and were healed of the coronavirus. So they're taking blood samples from these people and seeing what can be learned from that. The vaccine is not the only solution. It's not what you should be waiting for as an investor or just as an individual. You should not be waiting for 12 to 18 months, even when the vaccine will arrive. It will not be on a mass scale. So think more in terms of drugs that will be introduced soon, prioritized obviously to people that need them more. It could be that the healthcare workers will be first because we depend on them to treat the elderly and the groups that are more in risk. But think the younger generation and kids, everything, they will not be able to be confined to their house, quarantined for months. As I'm doing this daily injection program, I am being confined to my residence here in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and people outside can only go if they go to the farm, to food, or to essential things to do. They can still walk the street if they're doing a sporting activity, but no more than 5 people together and distance at 2 meters apart. And this is not a recommendation anymore. This is a mandated government regulation. So they can fine you or incarcerate you if they want to make an example out of you. So and California, as we know, the 6th largest economy in the world, has gone full-on shutdown since yesterday. So these are the things that are being considered right now. What can we do to make sure our healthcare system is ready? Because we're going to need to release people back to society. What drugs can we, suggest to people that have the disease? Can we prevent it? And can we stop it with already existing drugs? Or can we speed up the process of approving it safely? So think that, because that's more of the likely scenario, and that means that in a few months we are probably looking at the start of a recovery from the coronavirus, and not a year and a half from now when the vaccines are introduced. The next thing I want to talk about is how you should look at markets, because some companies are actually going to really benefit from the coronavirus and the coronavirus recovery, while other companies are going to be in survival mode, and maybe their industries will be so interrupted and so disrupted that if they had any leverage, any big overheads, and any real estate that they owe mortgages on, large mortgages, that they will not be able to sustain that. The government will not be able to bail out everyone practically and just financially. That is not doable. So there will be many people that fall between the cracks, and I want you to think about that, because you might be one of them. In order to prepare, think today about your job, your career, and where it stands. Think if you need another source of income. Think about the fact that you might need your spouse to join the workforce if she or he isn't. Think in terms of cutting back, of renegotiating your costs in your life with yourself. Maybe you need to take a hit and go back to 3, 4, 5 years ago to when you made less money. Think about what's really important to you. Can you forgo some things in your life just for a little while in order to get your head straight? And that's the last thing I want to talk about, getting your head straight. So use this time at home to read more, to think more. Go back to some of the books that inspired you in the past, or look for new ones. What really is a blessing for us is that in our own home, we have the largest library on the planet ever built at our disposal, no matter what. As long as we have electricity and the internet, we can access basically every book that was ever written. So look at books that you really want to read and think about what you're reading. Think about how to implement it in your own lives. This could be it is an opportunity to strengthen yourself, your character, your habits, look at this as a challenge for not only for humanity but for yourself. And I think that is a key lesson. So, for example, I've been reading Think and Grow Rich, one of my favorite books. Again, I've been reading other Napoleon Hill books every day. I've been looking at Bill Gates' top 10 books or his recommended books because he reads so much more than I do, and he publishes like what's his favorite book. So look at them. Many people don't agree with Bill Gates and his strategies on life and everything like that. The guy reads. So no matter if you're pro or against his ideas on humanity and everything like that, read what he's reading. That will be a great exercise for you to understand how he comes to his conclusions. I think that's important. And lastly, I want to talk about China versus the United States. So China and the United States are so different. And it is important to see how they both come out of this, being the largest economy on the planet and the second largest economy on the planet. The stock market in China has been flat throughout the coronavirus, where in the US we've seen, a bear market, and who knows how more this will deepen. So I want you to look at that, and I want you to think why it's happening, and start to think on what the Chinese have been able to do. Why have they been able to do that? Is that positive or negative that they have such an authoritative discipline over their societies, and how it's benefiting them in a pandemic, but also how it's not good on daily lives. Think about your happiness living in a place like that versus a place like the United States. Think about your internal happiness. How much do you depend upon a president, a political idea in order to be happy and fulfilled? Is it more something that you can make personalized, where it doesn't matter who's at the White House or who's at the who's the Fed chair or anything else, or who's your boss, in order for you to be fulfilled in your life? Individuality is really important in times like that, in times like this, because you are gonna definitely feel lonely, or lonelier than usual, and you need to let your mind work, and be self-disciplined. Think about self-worth and self-esteem, self-confidence, what you bring to the table, what value do you bring to the planet? Because if you're able to do these things, you will be inspired to understand your place. And that is basically the key question every person asks themselves every day, consciously or subconsciously. I leave you with that. Please go to wealthresearchgroup.com/V2/V1 and /virus for 3 reports on the coronavirus, V2 being the latest and most updated one. And we'll definitely thank you for taking the time to hear me out, and we'll see you tomorrow.